Great. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us today for this exciting session where we're going to be sharing some of the findings of our independent study with expectation state with all of you today. And we're also going to be sharing some of the thoughts we have in terms of EduSpots journeys moving forwards that the team have already put together. But the whole point of this engagement is that we bring a wider group of people into being able to share their ideas on what they are learning about the learnings that we've gained from expectation state and also their thoughts about the future forwards for EduSpots. So a very brief bit of introduction to EduSpots for those of you who might not be as familiar with EduSpots work. So EduSpots works with an incredible network of over 400 catalysts across 50 communities in Ghana and Kenya. And it's through all their efforts that this report is dedicated to, as they are the ones who are leading the change with over 10,000 learners. And they are the ones who've led to the shift that I put as the first quote here towards more learner-centered, inclusive and practical teaching methods, which are transforming school-based pedagogy, making education more relevant and engaging for students. So the way EduSpots works is that we as an organization, and EduSpots is not me, it's not Kennedy, it's not Lawrence, it's not Hamadou, it's everybody that engages with our work in different ways, with the catalyst being the primary driving force for all of our work. That we together help local teams to set up education spaces called spots, through which they engage learners in a range of clubs across strands such as gender equity, early years education, digital literacy, and eco-STEM education, all at different age groups, whilst also aiming to create transformations in the school-based and wider community pedagogy to make it more inclusive, play-based, and engaging in different ways that Lawrence will go on to explain shortly. So as I said at the start, it's important to say that how EduSpots does this is through a network of incredible local change makers who are a mix of teachers, students, and wider business people and nurses. EduSpots has a really wonderful mix of diverse ages and professional backgrounds. And this is what I think EduSpots gives the diversity of its approach, with communities all having their own ways of doing things that reflect their local cultures and contexts. So it's important in this quote, it says that the program has built an effective network of young people and community members. But in EduSpots, the catalysts have been a core part of developing and designing that very program, with the program starting with a working group of catalysts and many of the staff, about 70% of staff in Ghana, coming from catalyst and spot backgrounds themselves. So a really key thing in EduSpots, as hopefully you're already getting from the way that I'm talking, is that EduSpots, as one catalyst in the independent study said, from Amiel Spot said, we're not just implementing a preset model. Our ideas and experiences are actively shaping how EduSpots evolves. It's truly a collaborative effort. So right from the start, the whole way the network has developed, there's been input from so many different people, but particularly driven by the 400 catalysts who have set up their spots and who are the ones leading the programs. And also today, we hope to get everyone's opinions and thoughts as we continue to build EduSpots work through community and collaboration. So I just want to give a bit of context to the study, just so we all get a sense of what we were doing and why. So the reasons for which we thought it was important to do an independent study at this point, as we also celebrate a decade of EduSpots work. It's been a long journey over 10 years getting this far, but we thought it was a great time to take a bit of a step back and pause and really reflect firstly on whether we really are leading the change that we're aiming to. So whether the theory of change that we set out, whether we really are having those intended outcomes met in different ways. We also wanted to make sure that we have input and ideas on how to more effectively and sustainably meet those different outcomes at the community level and beyond. We wanted to gain some insight on different aspects of our model, such as our community-based spots versus school-based spots, the number of strands, the resources that we invest in, and aspects of our program design that we really wanted some independent reflection on. And this is all leading to a wider process of reflecting on our own internal monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems. As in EduSpots, we're never arrogant or think that we have the right way of doing things. We always want to bring on board learning partners to make sure we improve what we do, so that we're constantly evolving and adapting our approach as a very sort of flexible, small, responsive organization. And we also, of course, hope that at this point in our development, that this might open up wider funding opportunities for EduSpots, having an independent voice on our work. So we will be in different ways using this to pitch to funders to say that our model really is worth investing in for the changes, incredible changes that we're seeing being driven. And a big thank you to the Gower Street team and the EA Foundation, who are two of our most significant supporters, who could also see the importance of this particular study. So We're really pleased to say that the overall study does offer a really conclusive endorsement of EduSpots model, which is very exciting for all of us and certainly not something that we assumed would be the outcome. As you can see here, it says that the intervention model focused on community ownership, innovative teaching methods, and cultural alignment has proven effective and has potential to be replicated in other contexts. So we are very excited about EduSpots' potential, not only in Ghana, but perhaps beyond. But we'll talk a bit more about our future plans later. So a little bit about the sampling. So this study, Lawrence is going to give a lot more details, but this study was across 10 spot communities, and they were sampled by the independent evaluators expectation state, who picked a range of spots. There were a mix of school and community-based spots. They're in different geographical regions in Ghana, and some of them were really 10 years old in our network, other were brand new, so that we could really get a sense of different factors contributing to the model working in different ways. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Lawrence. So just to give a sense of this session, we're going to have an explanation in more detail of some of the findings shared by Lawrence, who's then going to involve Hamadou, who's one of our catalysts and a head teacher, in sharing some of his thoughts before we have some questions from the room on what you would like to dig into a little deeper into what the study concluded or reflections that you have, before we hand over to Kennedy, our head of operations, who's going to share some of the recommendations the study had for improving what we do and how we're responding to them as an organization, before we share some final reflections on the steps ahead and have some more questions from all of you and suggestions about what we can do in our next steps. So I'm excited to introduce Lawrence. I think many of you here already know Lawrence, but Lawrence himself started his journey actually taking one of EduSpots online courses before being a catalyst, setting up his own spot, becoming our literacy coordinator, before today becoming our head of programs for learner education, focusing on education research. So Lawrence, over to you for a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Kat. That's a very warm and very beautiful introduction. And good afternoon to all of us, or good evening, wherever you're joining from. Kat has done a very good job laying the foundation and establishing the rationale for which we intended to embark on this independent evaluation of our model. And so what, as she said, I'm going to do is to walk us through some of the findings that they established as a result of administering various instruments as part of their evaluation. And so essentially the methodology of the study used an outcome harvesting approach. Okay, and that approach essentially is to look at what we have achieved over the period and what specific actions that we undertook to achieve those outcomes. And so it's like walking backwards. This is what you have done. And if I walk backwards, you did A, B, C, D to achieve these outcomes. Now, as part of the study, surveys were administered. And so 211 respondents were part of the the whole study. 100 of them were learners, 24 catalysts, and 57 community members. Some of them were also head teachers. And the evaluators also did some desktop research by looking at some of our internal monitoring evaluation records and also our internal, I think it's external, so external impact ed evaluation documents. And also they triangulated that with qualitative methods like focus group discussions, interviews, and also did some observation in the spots. So going forward, what I'm going to do is to walk us through the short-term and long-term outcomes of our model and its potential for sustainability and replication. Great. So in terms of the short-term outcomes, I'll start with the learner impact. So I made mention that they reviewed some of our external surveys, which is Impact Ed. Essentially, Impact Ed is administered to test growth or to measure growth over time. And so we normally would administer our baseline surveys and then administer our endline surveys and the growth or changes in attitudes, changes in mindsets, or changes in skill over time. So at EduSpot, we have these strands that we run as part of the Ignite program. And these strands directly engage the learners in a series of activities within the sports. So for the ecosystem strand, the findings suggest or established that learners grew by 13% in their emotional engagement in math and science. And that involved 104 learners between January to December 2024. For our Ignite Equity strand, we focuses on gender equity and also with the aim of strengthening active citizenship competencies. Civic behaviors increased by 5% between January and December, also with a sample of 134 learners. For Digilite, which is our strand that focuses on imparting digital skills or leveraging the potential of digital tools for literacy improvement, our learners improved or grew by 2.4% in metacognition. And so here you're looking at their own self-awareness. You're looking at how they appreciate their own thinking patterns and the confidence they've probably developed in their use of digital tools and so on and so forth. Then, in terms of the monthly challenges, so all of these strands, these are some of the strands we run, but we have what we call our monthly challenges, which are administered every month. And these challenges, you can think of them as competitive, interactive, and engaging learning activities that take place within these strands, also called clubs. And so in terms of the monthly challenges for EcoSTEM, 96.4% of our learners rated the monthly challenges on a scale on a Likert scale, they rated that 5 out of 5, which means they strongly agree that the monthly challenges are relevant, and that 99.1% of these learners also established that the monthly challenges made a positive change in their growth or learning trajectory. Now, again, the desk review established that there was a 3.2% increase in the interest in reading, and you can associate that to some of the things we did in 2024 through the EduLit strand. 3.8% in school engagement, and so here we are looking at how well the kind of pedagogy we use draws attention to school activities or increases that drive to want to be in school. Those of us who are familiar with the Ghanaian context, we understand that there's a high attrition rate. And so, sometimes I think these monthly challenges are essentially doing something positive in the schools and for the learners. Now, in terms of other impacts, so I've mentioned 99.1% said the club made a positive change and 8.2 improvement in teamwork skills, which is also threaded through the kind of pedagogy that we administer. So let's look at some of the qualitative, feedback or responses that came from community members and some catalysts to strengthen the quantitative findings that were made. So here, a catalyst at above 4 spot said the reading and writing skills of club members, which include other schools members, have improved, as have their creativity and ability to think critically in solving problems. At Zambalun, we have learners do not roam anymore. And so this goes to affirm what I earlier on said, that there's been an improvement in school engagements. They are always at the spot to learn. At Sakasaka, a community leader said, I've noticed a significant improvement in my children's reading ability, which has translated into better academic performance. At Wodome, head teacher said, now children love their books and learning during the exam. The children perform well. So these are some of the qualitative, findings that goes on to affirm what the quantitative outcomes were. Now, in terms of pedagogical effect, and so you can think of our sports as modeling behaviors, especially in the school-based context. So most of our sports operates side by side with how schools operate in general or during school hours, and so these catalysts go on to model behaviors, pedagogical behaviors that they take back into their classroom. So here, the findings have established that there's been a shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered pedagogy in many schools. And we can see assertions or statements like most clubs are children-centered, unlike before, where teachers came to lecture and go. Learners now express themselves and bring out ideas. At Wodome, we have a teacher said, we realize the library time generally used by students today is now used beneficially because of the coming of EduSpots, the donated textbooks and storybooks. The methodology we are using now is learner-centered. So here you can think of, what GES has prescribed, that every school must have a library period. Yet in some contexts, most of you would bear, if you are familiar with the Ghanaian context, that sometimes these periods are not being used effectively. And so this is worth, touching on. Now, that can be looked at from three perspectives. So we have the fact that the kind of activities we are doing at EduSpot, the project-based approach we are using, the play-based learning that we are using, the culturally relevant materials that are being used through the clubs that we run, are being integrated into formal curriculum. Number two, we also realize that as a result of the emphasis on play-based learning, there's gradually a move away from corporal punishment and, some practices that may be untoward in terms of approaching and designing learning experiences. And so, by and large, we see that a lot more learners are gravitating toward the use of more play-based learning in their approaches. Then we have community-tailored teaching. As I said, learning, as is being established by the findings, is being contextualized within local settings to make it more relevant to the lived experiences of our learners in various communities. Please, let's move on. So I've looked now at the impact on learners. Now let's look at the catalyst. In terms of leadership growth, our catalyst improved or grew by 3.9% self-efficacy. In terms of their sense of community, their attachment to a team, they grew by 4.4%. And about 98% of our catalysts felt able to contribute ideas to EduSpots development. And that's based on the model we are running, a community-led model where we expect that catalysts will continue to, feed into wider organizational strategy. And we have some profound remarks from some of the catalysts to affirm these statistics. Looking at where I come from, says one of the catalysts, like a girl, it's not easy for a lady to come out and talk. People always look down upon us ladies, telling us we can't talk during family meetings or say anything. But now I will speak and say what I want. Of course, I'm sure she's going to say positive things. So yeah, that goes to affirm. And then the catalyst says, previously I was uncomfortable speaking publicly. EduSpots boosted my confidence significantly. And a part of this, if we are to map it to the approach that the evaluators use within the framework of the outcome harvesting approach, they go on to state that the Catalyzed Leadership Program, which we run at EduSpot, which is a comprehensive 9-month program, has really accounted or contributed to these outcomes by increasing a sense of optimism, that sense of I can do, that sense of positivity when it comes to approaching issues in respective communities. The Catalyzed Leadership Program has enabled confidence among our catalysts and also imparted practical project management skills. Now, in terms of inclusion and accessibility, a core part of our activities at EduSpot, and which is also threaded throughout the entire organization, deals with our safeguarding policies, what we call keeping the spot safe. And so here, it's also been established that as a result of the trainings that we provide to our catalysts, as a result of the digital tools that we provide for them, and the resources that we also provide for them, sports are beginning to adopt inclusive approaches, and that includes using visual aids, projectors, and multimodal teaching styles to cater to the different needs, of learners that come into their spaces. And so we have an anonymous catalyst saying we focus on learning through hands-on experience and ensure everyone participates. We also use visuals in teaching with a projector. At Savelugu last year, they constructed, a very beautiful facility edifice, and they were thoughtful to include a disability ramp, as part of being conscious of safeguarding and inclusion and accessibility. And we also have another profound remark: we don't discriminate against who can access the spot. All people from all occupations come here. Our community is diverse, like a Zongo community. When we come here, we look beyond our differences and see what we have in common. So we see that even through EduSpots activities, there's that sort of intercultural communication, intercultural understanding, which is all essential for fueling community growth and development. And 15% of the catalysts expressed uncertainty about handling complex safeguarding situations. So that essentially is like about 85% saying they are confident when it comes to handling safeguarding situations, but we still acknowledge that when it comes to safeguarding, at least we should hope to attain to 100%, of catalysts being more confident to address safeguarding issues. Then we also in the process did transition from focusing just on girls to focusing on boys and girls in one of our strands, which I made mention of earlier on, called the Ignite Equity Strand, as a result of catalyst input. And so some of the catalysts also affirm that has also improved on gender inclusivity in the sports. And also we see parental engagement sessions fostering child awareness and replacing punitive methods with healthier communication. And that's because our safeguarding activities don't only target the learners, but we also send that to the community. The catalysts send those activities to the community, and that is also affecting the level and depth of communication that parents want to have with the awards. So in terms of learners becoming active citizens, one of the approaches that we are working toward will be for the fact that we are aspiring that a learner would go through the EduSpots model and eventually become a future-oriented citizen, active citizen. And so the findings by the evaluators also go to acknowledge that 65% of the learners took on leadership roles, and many of them are now beginning to participate in environmental initiatives and peer tutoring programs, in the community. Some of them have gone on to engage in and even initiate civic projects like, starting Sobolo production to fund sanitary pads and also reduce period poverty in places like Ahinkro. And then we also have most of the students now being confident when it comes to speaking in public, using their voices when necessary, and also participating in advocacy campaigns to fight for their rights and the rights of vulnerable groups in their communities. And all of these are some of the mindsets that are being shaped and transformed as a result of EduSpots activities. So at this point, I'll hand over to Hamidou Kader. Hamidou Kader is a head teacher and a catalyst, and also he has also gone through the peer mentor program at EduSpot, and currently he is a peer mentor. Sorry, he is a peer mentor. He also doubles as a catalyst, and he's also a head teacher. And so it's a right place for me to pass on the virtual microphone to him so that he can give us a first-hand impression of what he has made out of the evaluation. Kader, I think you are muted.
Hello.
Yes, we have you now.
Okay. I thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. As EduSpots is evaluating its independent evaluation, in fact, as a catalyst of Yampo Sport, I took the opportunity to attend the first ever catalyst program at Univa. I can quote and say, I attended the catalyst leadership program as an ordinary head teacher and returned as a professional and innovative head teacher. Why am I saying this one? Going through the 5 days residential leadership academy program gave me a lot of knowledge and skills. Being a head teacher now is not an easy work. It is a compressed activity. If you want to lead various teachers with different backgrounds, currently it's very difficult. As a head teacher, you have to get a much knowledge and skills in order to run your school and activities very well. If I say EduSpots has not contributed much of my sources from last year, then I'm lying. In fact, it developed me to be a strategic leader, a change maker, a financial steward, community builder, and staff developer. After the 5 days academic program, a lot changed within my personal and professional growth and the community as a whole. Initially, I was engaging mostly with the stakeholders through PTA meeting and the SMC meeting. But after the training, I started to get closer to the stakeholders in education, the parents, chief imams, and the rest. Having explained the concept of EduSpots to them, together with my teachers, many things changed in the school and the community as a whole. Our approach is as EduSpots, which is play-based learning approach, has made a lot of changes in the learners' activities. The approach is how learners learn has even changed. One thing maybe the evaluation even couldn't find out is peer teaching. Now the catalysts and the students themselves are teaching themselves. The students and the catalysts, the teachers, are teaching themselves with the new skills they acquire through the EduSpots model. I, being the head teacher, my reflection on this program has contributed a lot to the head teachers, even in the whole community. It is through the Catalyst Leadership Program that I was able to develop a strategic plan for my school. Within 2 months after the training, the school started winning several awards during competitions. This is mostly based on the approaches we used to teach. Enrollment also changed. I had a very increased enrollment rate. Since the learners themselves were sharing ideas, campaigning for EduSpots for themselves, many people started to come to the school to have access to the EduSpots facilities. The head teachers, when I engaged them through the stakeholder engagement, they were very, very, very happy and were much eager to learn much from me. Our model of safekeeping, that also brought a massive change. Previously, I admitted some special learners which could not stay in the school for just 1 year because of how the other learners were treating them even the teachers themselves. But after we took them through the safeguarding approaches, how we are supposed to protect the vulnerables in the community, the learners themselves, their approaches change together with the teachers. So parents also started to bring some of the special students to the school. Personally, I have developed a lot through EduSpots Catalyst program. It was through EduSpots that I was able to make first Zoom meeting. That is the truth. Through EduSpots that I had access to Zoom meeting, Google meeting. Now I can connect the rest of the head teachers to have a meeting on Zoom.
Wow.
All through the EduSpots training we had through the Catalyst Leadership Academy. The learners are also taking the role of catalysts themselves because of the approaches we used to teach. Now it is play-based, and learners are free to interact with the facilities of the school, ask questions when needed. Then they also have access to our digital tools for research. So for the evaluation, it's very, very good for us to have this evaluation. And the new catalyst, you are not in your community as a teacher, a nurse, but not a change maker. If you want to be known as a change maker, then take EduSpots models seriously. And your participation in this year Leadership Academy will be much higher to develop you personally. Networking among EduSpots has also gave me a lot of opportunity. During the Catalyst program, I met one head teacher, Mr. Solomon of Fanko, who taught me one or two strategies how he was able to handle his teachers during classes hours. When I came back and implemented the same strategy, it worked like a magic. So the network, connecting people, we share ideas. What I can say much is sharing of ideas is helping us a lot. Through the Catalyst program, I have also developed to become a peer mentor, where I'm also learning a lot. That is broadening my knowledge and my skills as a professional teacher or a head teacher. Not knowing all these skills will lead me to another institution where my engagement with my unit manager also entice him to introduce me to another institution that needed a vibrant and innovative person to embark on research for them. It is through EduSpots Catalyst Leadership Academy that all these skills were acquired. And this benefit are being enjoying now. When we get to the community as a whole, our community engagement has increased. The community is now accepting our model of change. Schools, the head teachers are all learning from EduSpot models, safeguarding activities, and they sometimes call us to come and give them talk on how to manage certain activities in their schools. So as a catalyst leadership program is coming on, I will encourage every participant to take it serious.
Wow.
You are not going to learn for yourself and personal development alone, but the staff and the community as a whole, they all seem to benefit from this program.
All right.
I'm urging everyone to take it as opportunity to develop yourself, to have financial for future employment or future advancement. Your position as a teacher is not only in the classroom, but for the whole community and the nation at large.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Kado.
think,
Because of
thank you
time,
very much. Okay.
that was a very brilliant and insightful submission, giving us a sneak peek into what happens from your own perspective as a catalyst, firsthand experience of what happens as a catalyst. And I really appreciated how you tackled the various aspects of the evaluation and how that has played out in your own sports. My heart leaped for joy when you mentioned the peer learning that happens even among your learners. And I felt that was really, something worth celebrating. So thank you very much, Kadro. While the conversation goes on, if you have any questions, you feel free to note that down, because I'm sure there'll be time for questions. And so to take it up from where Kadro left off, still back to the model, in terms of community ownership, we had 78% of sports having secured local funding or partnerships to support their ongoing operations. So we typically say that one thing that makes the EduSpots model unique is its cost effectiveness. So we see here that sports are bearing, and owning their own processes of change through contributions, financial contributions that they are making. And Kado did mention that one thing that the evaluation probably didn't capture was the fact that there was more peer-to-peer learning even playing out. And those are some of the unexpected outcomes that are associated with the model. And so the model did establish that even though in our theory of change, we've not really targeted imparting digital literacy skills to members of the community or adults based on the strands that we are running at this point in time. It's been established that the learners do actually go back home and impart those skills to parents or community members, older community members, so to speak. And so that really is an unexpected outcome, which seem to suggest that if the EduSpot model is looked at more carefully, there could be, wider positive consequences that has not even been premeditated on or pre-imagined. So we have things like book donations, tutoring sessions, library construction, and sports expansion are some of the ways that communities have supported. And also, we have a network density between the schools and community partnership being rising to 60%. We have members of parliament supporting various projects in our sports communities as well. Please, let's move on. So in terms of challenges identified, so the evaluation did also identify that even though it's a great model, there are still areas that we have to keep working on. And number one has to do with the catalyst turnover and workload management issues. Some of our catalysts are teachers. They are teachers. They double as catalysts. They might have other, side hustles or whatever they are doing, in their own lives. And for that matter, we still have issues like workload management affecting delivery in some areas. Community engagement levels vary across locations. And so whereas for some communities, the community is actively involved in the process, there possibly could be some communities where they are at the stage of being curious. In some communities, it could be that they are at the stage of, trying to, own the process in itself, or even for some, it could be that they are just passive. So engagement levels vary across locations. Then they also recommended that we work on the need for better engagement strategies for not in employment, education, or training. And so here they assert that even though the model is great, those who are not in employment, those who are not having any form of training seem not to be captured. And basically that could be for the learners or the catalysts who are given their time, or for the learners who are patronizing sport activities. And so there's a need for us to look at doing activities that capture these target group as well. Then we have physical infrastructure limitations at the sports and equitable distribution of digital devices. So these go hand in hand in terms of logistics and the kind of resources that we need at our various spots. So in terms of my reflections from where I sit and my experience as a catalyst and eventually becoming a staff, these are the areas that I've drawn and I hope to work on in my own line of working with my team. And number one is to look at how we can strengthen pedagogical support for the catalyst. We are already seeing early signs of impact. And so things like lesson adaptation, picking concepts in the curriculum and adapting those concepts or extending those concepts in exciting ways could be very helpful. Flexible training formats and micro-learning videos to model out pedagogies for catalysts would also be very helpful. And then also we have to continue to address drop-off in engagements. So we know that some sports start very well at the beginning of the year, but then along the line, they might lose motivation, they might hit that crisis stage. And so we have to innovate in our incentives to help sustain participation. And then again, we have to look at teamwork and community involvement and scale them where they have been successful. So if it's been successful somewhere, we might want to ask ourselves, what makes it so good here? What actions are those catalysts taking that's making the engagements in that particular community work? And also see how we can recommend same to other catalysts. And then finally, we have already begun the process of strengthening our communication and partnership, or working relationship with the strand coordinators, with the regional coordinator. So I am within the strand, so the learner strands, and the other hand of the Ignite program deals with the regional coordinators. And so we are beginning to see how we can strengthen our relationship and also mentor our sport teams effectively. And so that's all from my side. At this point, I'll hand over to Kennedy to take us through the recommendations that they have for us.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. So on my part, I will look at the recommendation that came out as a result of this study. The first one is, not to state the obvious, but at EduSpots, we know we have two streams of sport, or two categories of sports, those that are based in schools and those that are based in community. The percentage currently is 80% of our sports are school-based, 20% are community-based. The recommendation from the study is that we need to develop a clear guideline for adopting the sport so that it will be easier for existing sports to know which delineation they belong and to actually be tracked or monitored or be assessed in terms of their progress and their characteristics. And so on that, some works already ongoing, some were in motion even before the study started, but others were yet to start. So one clear thing that has been in motion is our sport review framework. The sport review framework enables us to sort of like periodically, every quarter, look at how each sport within our network is doing. And on that, I would say, if they are school-based sports, the criteria, there are similar criteria, whether they are school-based sport or community-based sport, but we look at the peculiarities and the factors that is forcing them to grow or to fully participate in the program or otherwise. And so that's already exists. However, some of the recommendations that we are hoping to put in place as far as this study is concerned is for us to, one, develop a guide, like I indicated, where we'll be able to simplify the onboarding process or the admission process for sports based on the two categorizations. Another thing that we are aiming to do as part of the recommendation is creating a guidebook, a detailed framework for the model for catalyst and community understanding. So the EduSpots model is community-led, community-driven. And so in order to enhance understanding of our model, there are different categories of catalysts depending on the characteristics of the sport. And therefore, that guide will be necessary for us to, be able to model the sport or to drive the sport towards the ideal sport model that we want as a network. The second recommendation is that there's a need for us to work with each sport to develop long-term sustainability plans with the goal of making EduSpots as a driver of educational equity and wider community-led change. What this means is that every organization or every human endeavor, sustainability is always the question that comes. And so to us at EduSpots, we ensure that over the foreseeable future, the sports are sustainable by themselves in the communities where they operate or in the chain that they wish to lead. And so our strategic response has been that we need to do local sport community engagement. And we've already some of these in motion. For instance, our favorite sport league challenge focused on sustainability. Also, we will have extended sustainability discussions in our sessions in the upcoming Catalyze Academy, which is in 5 days. And then we do sustainability analysis during sport visit. That is the mandate, or one of the key mandates of RC, is to look at the sport, whether they are progressing, the factors that can make them progress, or the factors that can make them survive into the foreseeable future. And then we also look at sustainability from a partnership standpoint. You know, it takes a village. And so for each sport, we are seeking to create a local partnership database for each sport to look at the asset, the community assets, or more specifically, the stakeholders in the community that the sport can partner with, so that whether it's resource mobilization or similar, whatever main event they are doing, they will have that support through those partnerships. Then we have a Sport League Challenge in March, the just ended, the last month, which focused on resource mobilization, not only resourcing or mobilizing resources centrally and distributing it to the sport, which is what we have done this time now, but most importantly, teaching the sport how to fish as a core aspect of our sustainability drive. We also have fundraising session, because sustainability is also a part of it, is based on your ability to fundraise. And so during Catalyze, we'll have a session on fundraising where we discuss how the sports can raise their own funding without relying too much on EduSpots. And then similar endeavor in September, where the sports will engage in a sport lead fundraising challenge. Now, we also continue to communicate what it means when we say the model is community-led or community-driven. So we communicate that part of ethos. And then we are also considering the potential for us to create a sports sustainability toolkit where existing sports will use that, and then new sport that will join subsequently are going to use that toolkit as the key driver of their sustainability. The third recommendation that was made as a result of the study is the need for improvement to structure of catalyst coaching and mentoring, clear recognition systems. And here I'll say 3 things. What is already in motion, which we have done well, is we have RCs, 50 sports are divided into 4 clusters, and the 4 clusters have one RC each overseeing it. And one of the key things they do is they do every quarter one-on-one meeting. So every catalyst within the network gets the opportunity to meet with their regional coordinator to discuss their own life, their progression, their aspirations, challenges they face, real-time mentoring from the RCs. Because it's not just about them coming to volunteer their time or driving their own teaching, but we also want to see growth on their part in what they are doing. But apart from the one-on-one mentoring or the one-on-one check-in that RCs do with individual catalysts, there's also team coaching where the RCs once in every month meet each sport. So each sport team will meet their RC to discuss about the sports welfare or the sports activities, what is working well, what is not working well, what recommendations or what they have done about the challenges they face, and so on and so forth. And then what should be done moving forward. So that's also something that we've already put in motion. In terms of recognition, which is the third thing I'll say on this recommendation, we already have recognition systems. For instance, if sports participate in a monthly challenge, at the end of the month, we do a leaderboard where each sport is recognized based on where they place for each of the challenge. For the 5 strand, 4 learner strand, 1 leadership strand, we do that month in, month out. But not only that, every year we have national conference where we graduate different people that participated in different programs. And then we reward them based on the level of effort or commitment that they put in during those programs. So Catalyze, for instance, goes on throughout the year, and at the end of the year, the participants from all the 50 sports, they get to graduate where they are recognized for extra effort or excellence in the way they executed their project or overall participation in the program, etc. Ignite is also one of the programs, and then learners and catalysts alike graduate and get different recognition. What we are trying to embed now, which is already in motion, is we have an EduSpots app that is going to keep a digital trail of which catalyst is awarded or recognized for what, so that they will be able to properly document their volunteer journey and then their recognition as we progress as a network. On the structure of catalyst coaching and mentoring, there's also an aspect that I want to talk about before I move away, which is, as a network, we are continuing to recognize that which is what our model seeks to achieve, that over the foreseeable future, the sport will be able to drive their own, systems and initiatives and programs far and beyond what EduSpots permits them to do. And so we are increasingly building the capacity of all our sports to take ownership of their systems and processes, and so far, some sports are doing well, like Wodome, like Kumadan, where you go there, they do their own events independent of EduSpots, which is what we are always sounding home. That's the real change. That's when we can truly say that the real change is happening. For the sake of time, I will move to the 4th recommendation, which is they need to improve the catalyst and sport tracking and review, including usage of the app for this purpose. I've talked about the app. One thing you do, which is helping catalysts to document their volunteer journey and also keeping a digital trail of their recognition. But not only that, we have a catalyst database, which we track every time a new catalyst joins. And then RCs take it from there and update that database frequently so that we'll have the up-to-date information about the status of that catalyst within the network. We also have quarterly sport review, which I've already talked about, to judge the progress of the sport, what they are doing well. Those that are doing well are praised. Those that need improvement, the specific areas where they need improvement, because we believe as a network that no 2 sports are the same. We give those recommendations for them to work on a team. We are also making it mandatory for everybody, for their own benefits, catalysts to frequent the usage of the app. Everything that they do in the name of the sport, of the sport, that is their volunteer journey. So the power is in their hands via the use of the app to document their volunteer journey. Those are things that we use to evaluate and make determination as to which catalyst or sport deserve to be recognized. Now, we are also working on getting a medical consultant. All that set aside, we are an organization that believes that continuous improvement is necessary. So this year, we are looking into bringing on a male consultant the same way we did with independent evaluation, but the male consultant coming into the organization, looking at our systems, especially on aspect of male, and helping us to improve. The fifth recommendation was that there was a need for us to, as a team, to develop targeted strategies to engage young people, not in employment, education, or training. Ed Lawrence talked about it in a bit. Here, even though the recommendation is true, but I want to highlight that when you look at our statistics, we don't have too many of this category of catalysts. Most of our catalysts, in the majority, are employed, either with GES, they might be nurses, they are employed with the public or private sector, business people, and then they volunteer their time building or leading their own change in the community. And the others that are for them will be your prospective catalyst. They are currently learners or sparks, and they, as they grow, maybe from primary to JHS, they sort of like learn to walk in the ways of the catalysts in their community by starting to also volunteer their time to do or engage in different sports activities. And so if you are looking at the remainder, which is those that are not in any of these two categories that I described, it forms the large minority. It's less than maybe 2 or 3%. However, I always say that at EduSpots, we have addressed most of the needs in terms of what catalysts get as benefit or as value by joining the EduSpot network. One of it is that even if you are not in employment or not in education or training, that is open to this program I'm going to talk about is open to categories of persons only. But if you find yourself in that category, there's a peer mentoring program which is open to catalysts that are permitted. Every year we take not less than 6 or 7 catalysts. This year we have 8. That we say that if you are willing to get extra skill, you enroll on the program as a peer mentor, where you get to learn specific hands-on skill, and then that will boost your chance of being employed. Some through this program, like last year, have progressed to serve in different permanent employment capacities at EduSpot. Others that I know have also secured employment after 1 year of engaging in the peer mentor program. So this is a feather in the cap of EduSpot to say when you volunteer, or none of our volunteers is actually overlooked. That notwithstanding, like the point 3 on the slide, we are continuously considering wider engagement, or wider considerations might affect our model, whether or not we have to create maybe another, say, strand where we can rope in topics or issues or training programs focusing on need. That's not something we currently have, but it is obviously something that we as an organization continuously evaluate, model, and then see where we should progress it. The 6th recommendation, if I'm not mistaken, is that the study recommended that we need to work more closely with local education authorities to integrate EduSpot activities with formal school curriculum, enhancing the program's impact and sustainability. Here, what the study seeks to suggest is that it looks as if there is a school of thought that says we should teach the GES curriculum because we are focused on basic education, or we have learners enrolled in our program that are largely in basic school. One school of thought is of the view that we should mirror our club activities to fit the GES curriculum. Much as we have done that, our focus as an organization has not been that we want to reteach what teachers are already doing in the classroom. We are positioned as a development organization that's focused on equipping the catalysts with leadership skills. So, like Hamidu mentioned, you come to EduSpot, you learn skill, and you are able to model or mentor your fellow teacher to teach better, if I'm to put it in a layman's word. So things like, yes, it's the same curriculum you'll be teaching, but to what extent can you include, say, play-based learning, and to make the learner, recognize what you are teaching quicker? To what extent are you able to integrate, say, digital skills? And that's, what is his name? Isaac and his team spend time to model our programs after. That is what EduSport stands for, not to necessarily teach the GES program. So much as we are seeking to form partnership with GES, which we are actually at it for some time now, our focus has been that we are partnering with these fantastic catalysts who might be serving in different capacities in schools. But on the issue of partnership with GES, we just want the recognition and the framework within the country where we are operating in these schools legally, or we are operating, not that we are not doing so at the moment. We currently, that is enrolled in our program, that is in the EduSport network, we have agreements with the schools. We have a partnership agreement with the schools. We have agreement that has been signed by head teachers, so that I can say confidently that no head teacher or no school can say an EduSpot exists without the notice or the approval of the head teacher. But beyond that, we are seeking to form a GES partnership. We are seeking to ensure that we are building the capacity of these teachers to be able to teach better without the need to sort of like duplicate what they are already doing. Now, the seventh recommendation, which was not explicitly stated, but it's at the heart of our model, which is safeguard. Okay, so the recommendation was the effect that we need to continue to embolden our safeguarding for learners, for the different categories of persons that are stakeholders in our program: learners, the catalysts themselves, the community. And here I can say proudly that it's something we already do. And last year we had 39 sports, then we organized training programs for all the three categories of stakeholders that we directly interface with. We have very good reporting frameworks, which are well recognized and adhered to by our network of 50 sports. But not only that, this year we are embarking on the same training next month during sport visits. And then we are also seeking for funding to organize tailor-made safeguarding training for our safeguarding or keeping sports safe project leaders across all our sports. And then we are seeking to have a consultant to deliver a training on safeguarding for all the leagues in the 50 sport. And then we continue to review our safeguarding procedures as and when necessary. Now, at this point, the last recommendation I will hand over to Kat, if you can hear me, to talk about the recommendation on partnerships and effort that we have made and some that we are yet to put in motion. Kat, if you can hear me, over to you.
I can hear you well. Thank you, Kennedy. And for anyone who didn't catch it, he's the head of operations and done a huge amount of work to put a lot of these strategic plans into action, especially with the app that I know Catalysts have worked really closely with both Kennedy and Lawrence across the last period. So in brief, the plan to expand partnerships. So we already have a really structured approach to partnerships in place, but the issue with our team is always time capacity, as we're a very small team. We're a relatively small organization compared to others that might operate at our same scale. But we are looking for people who want to work with EduSpots in several ways. So if you're out there and you're listening, we are definitely looking for people working in Ghana who might want to deliver aspects of the spot model through their own organizations. And we'll be touching base with a few people we've already built relationships with in that regard. And secondly, we're looking to find partners who are aligned in different educational areas that we work on, so we can learn together and also bring you in to support different aspects of our strands where there's a good fit. We're always looking for resource partners, people who want to support the EduSpots network with much needed books, digital tools and similar. And of course, we're always keen to be part of learning groups of any form, particularly as we look to expand the network from 50 to 100 spots. in the next period, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second. So in terms of how we're aiming to communicate this study, in case you've got any ideas, as we're going to come to questions and suggestions in a minute, we're currently doing sessions with all different stakeholder groups. This is a kind of wide public engagement. We're doing smaller group engagements with staff, with catalysts, with peer mentors, with partners, and with funding groups to make sure we get input into our development moving forwards. We're also making sure we use this evaluation to look at, again, at how we explain the impact of our work and apply for funding. And we're also looking for opportunities to share this study and the findings more widely. So if anyone knows a platform for that, please do let us know, or let Kennedy or Lawrence know. We're also sharing lots of these amazing quotations, which I know in this short amount of time, they only skate over the surface of this incredibly comprehensive study. If you have time, please do read the study in full if you want to learn more about EduSpots' work. I know we've got lots of catalysts on the call here who I'd love you to read the full study, which is a reflection of all of your work and the 10 spots that were surveyed. So in the terms of the next steps for moving forwards, I think the EduSpots network really feel that we have a model that has the potential in the short term to move from 50 to 100 spots. So we're looking for funders in the short term and partners who can support us in that transition. And we are planning to use that expansion process to learn further about our model's adaptability to scale and different things we need to think about when we're bringing on board larger groups of spots and catalysts in this process. So we're hoping that bringing on a larger number at once will be a good learning process for us. And now it's not just us saying that our model is replicable, but also Expectation State, who have also highlighted the value for money of our program. We really believe as a network that we've got a model here that's extremely low cost, that's run by local people, owned by them, and allows them to sustain the changes that they want to see for their communities well into the future, with support from a wider network of communities who constantly collaborate across the network. So just want to finish before we open to questions on just a few closing quotations from catalysts themselves. So you've heard from Hamadou, he's one of our head teachers, and I think it's incredible to hear all these stories. But one thing that kept coming out in the study was this shift from seeing ourselves, whether we're teachers or catalysts or leaders, more as facilitators, of people who guide people in different ways to take ownership of their own journeys. And just love this quote from a head teacher saying the energy in his classroom has completely transformed. And when people talk about EduSpots as a whole, I think a lot of people talk about the energy, the positivity in today's world, where there seems to be not universal positivity in different ways, that we feel that this is something we're harboring as a collective network. And the final quote we want to share, that this one came from a village elder who said that the spot has become a hub for more than just education. So we know we're EduSpots, we're all about education, but the spots are being used partly through the strands and just through the wider imagination, desires and actions of catalysts for things far wider than what you might class as traditional education in that formal context. That we're seeing community cleanup drives, we're seeing awareness campaigns. You can see here Barakusu and Savelagu doing a anti-sexual harassment campaign in Savelagu spots. There was something that was done in different local forms all across the network. And the kind of overall vision of EduSpots is so much more as a whole than what just happens at the spots. That we have, through this study, seen the incredible actions of catalysts across the network. But the overall vision of EduSpots is a rethinking of how we work as organizations, in part to enable organizational models to develop that truly involve everyone as participants in an evolving process of change and as members of a wider network, rather than passive beneficiaries of stuff that they haven't had a decision in even choosing. So as we move forward, we also want to share EduSpots philosophy. That's a philosophy that is about organizational change, about how community catalysts are involved in that change process, and about how education as a whole can be transformed to have civic action at its heart, so that every single learner passing through the spots has civic action and community connectedness embedded into the education, which is already a key feature of loads of the government changes in Ghana and across the world. And the EduSpots, I think, powerfully shows through the catalyst modeling the change. With people like Hamadou being catalysts, you can only just imagine all the learners that are being the future catalysts of change kind of coming up in Yamfo behind him. So at this point, it's definitely the time. I know in EduSpots, sometimes we're not the best at timing, I think, because our passion often overrides our sense of time in a very positive way. But does anyone have at this point any questions or suggestions that you want to bring to the room. It's an open house at this point. You can either just come off mute, share your idea, or throw it into the chat if you've got a question or a reflection for the team. Also want to add that I know that there were quite a lot of male voices on this call. We've often had a lot of really powerful stories shared by our female staff and female change makers. So I know some of our female staff and catalysts are here if they want to share any of their reflections. We always want to make sure we have a balance of voices too. We've gone quiet. That means I'm going to be that teacher who picks on someone. Cynthia, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Brilliant. So I know that you've been a catalyst. You've come through into a staff role, leading EduKids. You're now our regional coordinator. Looking at all of this evidence, what do you think have been your key learnings in terms of your regional coordinator role moving forwards?
Interesting question. I think I'm going to be more focused on how best we can support our catalysts more to ensure that as they are leading change, feeling the impact in their lives, as well as the lives of the learners they are directly working with. So that's what, as a regional coordinator, I'll be focusing on, looking at the findings that we've had from Expectation State.
Great. Well, other people are getting some questions, reflections together. Gifty. Gifty, are you able to hear us? Maybe she's not able to unmute. Rita, I know you've been with us on the whole call. I'm wondering if you have any reflections about any learnings from this that you'd like to share. Yeah, you just came off mute. You don't have to. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, in fact, being a catalyst, I've experienced a lot. In fact, I'm really blessed to be a catalyst. As a professional teacher, being in touch with EduSpots, it has enlarged my scope of learning, my way of communicating or associating with others, getting closer to the learners, and also inventing more ideas, yeah. Especially where I was, my village. In fact, the monthly challenges will come to be like, hey, where we are not going to get matured, but we'll try and do something. In fact, then with the Catalyst program I came last year, it has helped me to overcome my fears. One of the activities that we did, the web, train the thread to each another. Yeah, you have to overcome your fears and also target at something and make sure you achieve it before you move on. And as I've moved from my old spot, where I am now, I'm trying to get others on board. So I think before the end of the year, that new spot we hear from it, then Rita will write again. Thank you.
Great. I love that you're not just, you recognize in EduSpots, it's not all on others to solve the problems in your spot, that you're straight in suggesting the own things that you're going to do to build your team. But Rita, what else could we do, like following this, do you think, as a whole network to support catalysts like you in building teams? Listening to some of this study, do you have any other ideas of people beyond you who could offer support?
Oh, yeah, I think for now, I think the timing is the most difficult thing, but I think EduSpots has done it all because our regional coordinators are around, they're always available. The other team are also available. to give their maximum support. Recently, I think I'm partaking in the Canva weekly activities. In fact, I'm really happy. So what we need, your support, you are providing it for us. So if anything comes up, we will share. And I think you are going to provide that one too. So I'm okay for now.
Great, love that example of, for those who are not in the network, the latest Canva design course, our in-house design course that Farida and Noah and Isaac are running, that came as a request from Catalyst. I'm aware we've run far over time. Does anyone have a final question or reflection? Not that this is the end of a process, but anyone want to share anything else?
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. What I can say to my fellow catalysts on the platform is that leadership is a journey, and you will not know where you will be next time as a leader. So we are trying to learn, invest in your leadership skills. And I can say that EduSpots is the perfect opportunity for our catalysts to invest in your leadership skills, so that when that opportunity comes, you will grab it with much hope and confidence. Because my participation have gave me more opportunity and still giving me more leadership position to take. So I'm urging all catalysts to take their activities very serious and take full participation of the coming Leadership Academy. It is very helpful to everyone, not even teachers alone, but the other health workers and other social workers too. That is my final conclusion to them.
Thank you, Hamidi. You've definitely fired me up. And I'm also always investing in my leadership skills in this network. I can say that I've grown more than anyone, probably. I don't know. It's not a growth competition, but I know I've had a very steep learning journey. And I'm just so grateful, Hamidi, for everything you shared today and all the change that you and all the catalysts are not only leading, but sharing across so many people. Anyone want a final reflection, or should we let Hamidi have the last words? Invest in our leadership growth. Daniel, you're coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, EduSpot has done it all. With regards to my leadership skills, I was a little egocentric when I attended the Catalyst Academy. One of the things that we learned is a leader should be a team player and should be collaborative. This has helped me a lot, especially outside the teaching field, me being an assembly member. Based on what I learned at the Catalyst training or academy, I was able to collaborate with my people to bring a lot of change in my community. And sometimes, at first, during the mantra challenge, especially the sport lead challenge, I used to do it alone. But after the Catalyst training, especially the one that we had at Funko, now I think about how are you going to do it? I give people opportunity to bring their inputs and even to lead the challenge. And this is really helping our sports. And at the moment, even this year, we've won Educate Mantra Challenge, the Catalyst of the Month, and also the Sports of the Month. So amazing that EduSpots is improving through all this training that we've encountered. And even the Canva training that is ongoing, it is really helping us a lot. So EduSpots as an organization has really bring change into our community.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And it's great that we now have Daniel as our secretary for the Catalyst Committee, newly elected into his role. Just love how Daniel there focused on the importance of teamwork. I think in EduSpots, we often reflect that we often talk a lot about leadership, but how much in leadership do we really talk about teamwork and the importance of centering all our actions within that group goal context? So amazing to hear, Daniel, about your team development in Dadwin. We're seeing the results. the competition leadership board is featuring you a lot. Anyone else want to jump in for the final word, or are we going to allow Daniel to have it? The importance of teamwork. I'm enjoying these reflections. When I was a teacher, I'd always pause for at least an uncomfortable minute before closing any question, as we all take processing time. But I think the room is ready to go off into the evening, hopefully hugely inspired by all the reflections that we've had today. And in EduSpots, it's always an ongoing process to feed in your suggestions. So whatever your idea is, whatever your suggestion, whatever your concern, I think everyone here knows the different people that they're able to contact. So a huge thank you to everybody here, and wishing you all a great end to the evening. Feel free to come off mute and say goodbye, EduSpots style.
Okay, we also thank you and grateful for this wonderful session. One of my spark even came and said by me, hearing whatever is going on, and he has enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
I'm loving all your certificates behind you as well, you Hamadi. There's a lot of Yamford pride.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice to meet
you. Nice to meet you too.
You've got a learner in the house. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. Thank you for joining.